Hey fitness friends, today we're going to do a little Q&A video. I've been getting questions on social media and in the comments of these videos, so I figured I'd gather them all up, and today we'll go out and throughout the day we'll just answer the questions, and if you like this, then in the future we'll continue to gather questions up and we'll post these ever so often. So let's get going. Question 1. Do you run with music? Well, actually I don't run with music. Probably 8 years ago, I started training without music. I was training for Ironman, and the first couple I had done, I just didn't really perform like I wanted to. I got to the run and I had a really hard time with it. So I decided to go ahead and try and become mentally tougher. And the way I did that was, one of the things was to stop using music during training, because I felt like if I was using music, it was occupying my mind or taking my mind off of what I should be focused on. And then when I got to a race and I didn't have that music, I had a really hard time pushing through, being what I figured or felt wasn't mentally tough. So I stopped using music. I started doing all my runs without music. And at that point, I really started focusing on the now, what was happening, my form, my breathing, thinking about the run, and not focused or trying to not think about the run or occupy myself. So at this point, I use no music, whether it's a 3-miler or a 20-some miler. I never use music. The only time I'll put on music is if I'm on a treadmill and I am actually in a hotel running, because I hate running on a treadmill. That's the only time I'll actually use music. Question: do I track the mileage added when filming while I'm out on a run? Like if I have to set the camera up, then run back and run by the camera. And do I track that mileage? Pretty much I track any mileage I run. If I have my watch on, I just let it run, and I will run up, put the camera, run back, run by it again. So I do get some back and forths. Sometimes it does decrease my overall pace, but I pretty much don't even worry about that. I did play around with the auto start and stop with Strava, but I found it didn't work as well and kind of inconsistent. Sometimes I'd get back, I know I had run 8 miles, but it was starting, or I'd look down and it would say it was paused and I'm running. So I pretty much gave up on that and pretty much track all the mileage I run. I let my pace drop when I'm filming and just not really worry about it. Just go out, run, put the camera, and then enjoy it. Question: what is your Strava name? It's CJ Media. That's pretty much what you can find me everywhere. CJ Media on Twitter, on Instagram, on Strava. That's pretty much where you're going to find me everywhere online. You can just search that, CJAYE Media. Question: how much time do I spend recording and editing the content I'm putting up each week? Well, I try and come up with an easy workflow for myself. So I record when I'm training primarily, or right before, right after. Is usually when I'm giving any sort of debriefs or talking about what's coming up. And then it really doesn't add that much time, because typically it's during training. The editing, what I try and do is I try and take the clips almost nightly and then pull them off the cameras and then dump them into Premiere. So that way I'm kind of editing my timeline all week long. So not at the end of the week do I really have to start. This way I have everything already in the timeline. I figured out what the best pieces are for each day, and then I can kind of shape the story as I go each week. So Overall, I'm probably spending maybe 3 hours a week, maybe 4 hours. What I find is actually selecting music is one of the hardest things to do. So finding music that fits the scene or the whatever I'm doing, that seems to be one of the most time consuming. But finding the clips, shortening them down, putting them in, I've used Premiere quite a bit, so I'm pretty good at that. And the recording, they're just quick clips, so I don't do a lot of setup, I don't do a lot of lighting, I don't do a lot of anything like that. And even on my videos, I'm not doing a ton of color correction. I'm making sure the audio sounds okay as far as levels, but that's about it. I'm trying to make it easy and quick. Question: do I ever feel stressed about trying to get in recovery, get enough training in, family, life? Certainly. That's pretty much a constant thing that I'm trying to balance, you know, dealing with training in the morning. Most of my training happens, I get up at 4, 4:15, 4:30, and I'm getting all of my training in the morning so that I'm able to get it done before my family even wakes up. And then I'm off to work. And then in the evenings we've got sports and activities, and there really isn't a lot of downtime. So trying to get enough sleep is always a constant thing I'm struggling with. Trying to go to bed by 9 o'clock, that gives me 7 hours, but many times it's later than that. So finding that balance of trying to get my training in early so that then I can be home, especially on the weekends, be home and be ready to go, which is hard because sometimes you just ran 3 hours and now here you are getting home and the family's ready to go. So that takes some discipline, some work, and it's always stressful. But you know, I find that when I'm training, I'm actually less stressed than if I'm not training. Question: what do I do for work? Well, I'm an electronic engineer and I actually do product development for video and audio equipment, and this is just a passion project for me. I really enjoy fitness and that's one of my major passions, so I really enjoy trying to inspire others. So my full-time job is something I've been doing for 20 years. But this is something I just really enjoy doing and really hope that people can take little tidbits or be inspired or, you know, learn something from it. And that's pretty much the reason I'm doing this. This is Katie, and our last question of the day has to do with warm-ups. Someone asked, what are your warm-ups and cooldowns like? Well, typically it depends on what kind of workout I'm doing, but let's talk about running since that's what we're doing most. And what I like to do, whether I'm doing intervals or a long run, is first mile, take it easy, go out, jog without really doing any sort of stretching. And then after about a mile, get into doing some dynamic stretching, which means basically not doing static hold stretches, but movements like walking while stepping and touching a toe, or stepping forward and pulling one leg behind you, doing lunges, things like that, doing high knees where you're basically stepping, pulling your knee up towards your chest. And that's what I like to do after about a mile. And then once I'm done running, that's when I'll do some static stretching. And that's when I'll try and stretch out my legs, doing toes, you know, touching my toes, pulling that knee back, trying to stretch out the IT bands, things like that. But for the most part, yes, I know, you're getting some attention. But for the most part, after I work out is when I do all my static stretching and when I do You're just dying for attention. So when I'm done running is when I do static stretching, and when I do foam rolling, when I get the ball out, like a lacrosse ball, and spend time working on really trying to get any sort of tight spots and work out the muscles and the tendons, all of that stuff. All right, well, that is it for this Q&A session. I do have more questions about supplements and training plans and coaches, things like that, but we just ran out of time today, so I will get to those in the next Q&A session. But if you liked this, give it a thumbs up and ask other questions you'd like to hear, and in the next week or so, we'll do another Q&A session.